Stacey Murphy here with a quick video on transplanting. I'm going to show you how to transplant efficiently and with great success. So the benefit of transplanting is that these are teenager plants. These are already on their way to becoming very healthy adults. And so that's the benefit to transplanting, and within several weeks you could have food. So before you get started, what you want to make sure you do with your planting beds is make sure your soil is moist and not dusty. You want your soil to be holding water so that when you water your plants in, that they take root. All right, so first up we're going to talk about transplanting seedlings. And on the screen here is a kale plant on the left and a celery plant on the right. And I recommend transplanting as much as you can. Just the things that are crossed off here don't make good transplants, and those things that don't make good transplants, carrot, radish, turnip, garlic, watercress, and any kind of seeds that you're going to broadcast, like arugula or lettuce mixes. When you're planting your transplants, if you have 5 true leaves, that is a great transplant. So what you want to do first with your transplants is lay them all out. So you have your crop plan, you have identified where you're going to plant what, and you have your numbers for how many plants you're going to put in the ground. Lay them all out and make sure they work. So this helps you fit everything into the space that you wanted to fit, instead of starting to plant and then you get all the way down the line and you realize that you only planted 8 instead of the 10 plants you wanted. So lay them down and get the spacing right. And then when the spacing is right, then you go ahead and you transplant them into the bed. And the way you do that is basically during the cool part of the day, you're going to take your trowel, you're going to dig a hole larger than the size of the root ball of the seedling. You're going to place the seedling in the hole. You're going to lightly cover it with soil, ensuring that the soil covers the stem up to the first 2 true leaves, and you're going to press gently down around the soil to make sure that that seedling gets a good contact with the soil around it, and that's what's going to help draw water up out of the soil and into the roots. There needs to be a little bit of pressure on that plant, just a little, and then you want to finish everything out by watering. If you notice that the root ball of your seedling looks a little bit dry, let's say it looks dusty instead of moist, what you want to do is really carefully add a little bit of water with a wand or with a watering can. Very, very gently spray that root ball so that it takes up moisture when it does get transplanted into the ground. And when you are transplanting, this should go pretty quickly because you already know the spacing. So you're going to stick that trowel in, make enough of an opening for the plant, drop it in, give it a good push to make the roots connect to the soil below, move on to the next plant. Just pull that soil aside with the trowel and don't pull the trowel out until the plant is in the ground. That's going to help you drop the plant in really easily. And so you're going to remove any debris that's around, pull that soil aside, drop the plant in, push the soil back, give it a push into the ground so that those roots can connect into the soil. Now, with plants that are very closely packed together, these are lettuce plants that I'm going to plant 6 inches apart. That's very tight. So I basically am taking the trowel and moving the trowel straight into the earth so that I can create just enough opening to drop that plant in and move on to the next one. I don't worry too much that there's a bunch of soil that's on top of the leaves right now, because that's going to happen because these are so close together. You can see me measuring there with my hand to make sure I'm putting this in the right spot, and essentially the distance between my baby finger and my thumb is about 6 inches. So you'll see me again, I'm going to measure and just make sure I'm about 6 inches apart, and I'm going to stick the trowel straight down, pull it apart, drop that plant in, and then give that plant a little snug pinch into the ground and move on to the next one. So this should go pretty quickly once you get the hang of it. A lot of times I see beginners dig holes for all the different plants and then go drop them in. That's time that you could not spend. Just put that trowel in, pull the soil aside, and that's enough of an opening to drop the plant in. And then once you've planted all of your main crops, go ahead and go back and add your herbs and your flowers to the in-between spaces. And here are some leeks that I am transplanting in between some of my kale. And the way I do this, I went out and I got a bucket that had a lot of leeks in it, a ton of leeks, hundreds of leeks, I would say. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this pot and I'm going to break it apart and I'm going to carefully pull out handfuls of these leeks. I'm going to kind of unroll them in my hand so they're in a kind of a line. And then I'm going to gently stick my trowel into the ground, pull the soil away, stick these in, and then basically mash the soil back up around it. And so this is really awesome for lots of different crops. Here's another one, cilantro, where I've gotten a pot of cilantro and it actually has like 3 different plants in it, actually a couple more, but it easily separates into 3 different plants. And so I'm going to plant those as 3 different areas of cilantro. And that way I can get some nice bushy plants all around my planting beds. After I transplant everything, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to seed any areas that I need to seed. And then after everything is planted, that is the moment that I will water the whole bed in. And I'm going to use those same strokes that I used when I was pre-irrigating the bed. I'm going to work systematically from one end of the bed to the other and make sure that all parts of the bed get watered evenly and that everything is moist. If it's going to take you a little bit of time between the time when you transplant and the time that you seed, you definitely want to water those transplants in so that they are moist and then come back and water the whole bed once you've seeded.